freaking out and trying to just isolate myself and hide, God has begun to show me that in that season of transition, why I'm feeling that way is because there is a new normal on the horizon for me. And in that transition, I have to be aware that there will be some trade-offs. So I'm going to talk today about trade-offs in your transition. Good morning. Welcome to this simple space. Thanks again for joining me on this beautiful Monday morning. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I want to just dive right in this week with you and just, again, try to encourage you a little bit. We're all in such a weird season right now this year, and on top of the normal transitions of our life that we have, I feel like COVID has really created a kind of a mantra in so many people that I talk to, and I hear this a lot. I'm just really ready for things to get back to normal. I'm ready for things to be the way they used to be. Trying to find my new normal. I've just got to get where I can feel normal again, over and over and over. And it's just really began to be something that I've been sitting in and asking God in my own life, because I felt that too. I feel the same things you guys do. And I just wanted to be really authentic with you guys today and transparent and just talk about, how that makes us feel when we're in a transition and we don't always know what the next step's going to look like. And so our natural instinct is we want to retreat and we want to hold on to those things that make us feel secure right now. And that's a natural feeling. In no way today am I trying to make you think that something's wrong with you if you feel those feelings of insecurity, if you feel scared or fearful because of what the unknown might look like for you, or if you find yourself in a situation that isn't even in your control. So those emotions are normal, but what I want to emphasize and encourage you is that we don't have emotions to follow and dictate what our life will be. We use those emotions to indicate to us some changes that might need to be making in our life. So when I begin to feel those unsettling moments of insecurity, instead of freaking out and trying to just isolate myself and hide, God has begun to show me that in that season of transition, why I'm feeling that way is because there is a new normal on the horizon for me. And in that transition, I have to be aware that there will be some trade-offs. So I'm going to talk today about trade-offs in your transitions. As a human being, you can't avoid them. If you honestly, and I'm not criticizing you for this, but if you feel like you should get to a point in adult life where nothing ever changes and your life is just the same as it's always going to be, and that you're never going to have any transitions, then I want you to stop right now today and just ask God to help you with that, because you will have transitions in your life. That's part of anything that's growing. Anything that's more than 5 minutes long is going to change, right? So I just want to encourage you today and talk about how that sorry, I have hair on my face. I can trade the security that I've always had for significance, and that's going to help me to create a new normal in my life. Psalms 27:1 says that the Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. God has a stronghold on my life. And if I can just focus on that and sit in that for just a minute, it helps me to understand my true security for me personally is not in what I have now, what I've always had. It's not about getting all I can, putting it in a can, and then sitting on that can, right? All that's going to do for you in trying to hold on to your past normal is create extinction in your life. It's going to create death in your life. Why? Because nothing in life was meant to sit and become stagnant. God, when He spoke, light be, has never quit creating light. When He created your design, He created it to be distinct. You're created for distinction, not extinction. And maybe that's something you're going to have to sit in your simple space with God and allow Him to begin to work through some things with you on that. Again, a lot of things that we present together here are perspectives and insights. They're an opportunity for you to expand the way you've always looked at your life, and it's an opportunity for growth. But it's on you to go at the pace that you feel you can do. So as I talk about this today, I want you to begin to think, what is threatening my security right now in my life? What am I finding myself feeling insecure about? What am I trying to hang on to? What am I trying to go back to? What am I feeling like if I walk away from this to try to find something better? What if it's worse? So many of us, I think, even in my own life, there have been seasons when I have been so unfulfilled and so unsatisfied and so fretful and anxious. And I found out that the real reason and the root behind that was that I was needing to step into a transition season of my life. And I was so afraid to do that because I was afraid that if I seek something better, if I actually think that maybe this could be better in my life and I try to trade that off, what if what I actually get is worse? You know, I think we all feel that as human beings. And do it anyway. We hear the phrase all the time, do it afraid. And I mean, there's some truth to that. But remember that God's got a strong hold on your life. And He's designed you for a distinction. So when you're feeling insecure, instead of sitting into that, I want to encourage you now to think of it differently. I am going to look at this season of my life as a trade-off. When you are faced with a challenge in your life and you've got to make a hard choice, don't look at that as loss or sacrifice. Begin to look at that as a trade-off for significance in your life. You know, I think about that, the dark seasons of my life, and in those seasons, I know it's really hard. You think, well, gosh, Stephanie, you don't know what I'm going through. You're right, I don't. And I think that people go through things all the time, every single one of us. Part of our human story and part of our human existence is there's going to be trials and tribulations. There's going to be things that come into our lives. And it's not about having a life free of that. It's about understanding who has a stronghold on your life in that. All right? You might be in some pretty heavy storms, but you know the one who calmed that storm and walked on those waves, and He'll do the same for you. It's the posture and the trade-off that you're willing to make in that season that's going to create significance and forward progress in your life. No matter the darkness or the fuelness of a season, we can always put a finger on something in our story that we can build on and build from. So I want you to use this transition season of your life as a trade-off block. It's like passing a baton in a relay race, right? You might have to trade off, and you might have to change hands, and you might have to do something different in order to continue the race that you're on, but you still have a path and a journey that God wants you to focus on even in that. So, I'm just trying to think about how to word this the best way. I want this to be good news for you. This is what I want for you. Right now in COVID, we all have had to make some trade-offs that, well, we need to be making some trade-offs. We need to look at them that way. Personally, myself, had a lot of trade-offs that I've looked to in this season. And at first, I felt like it was loss. At first, I was discouraged. I was extremely anxious about it. I own a small business that's greatly affected by what's happening with COVID. And so there was tremendous stress and strain. And how do I pivot in that moment? And I kept saying, all right, well, I'm just going to bide my time and it'll get back to normal. And then I began to realize I need to create my new normal. How can I now focus on creating significance for my clients that I wasn't able to do in the past, because now I have a new opportunity to do that? How can I focus on significance and trade that off for my security, and that will in turn create security for them? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, God's God of exchange. What I need, I'm not going to produce for myself. Somebody else, God's going to bring into my life. What I need is to focus on you and think about how I can help create significance in your life through my distinct design. And that in turn is going to create security back into my life. Does that make sense? So what season of life are you in right now? I had you ask that question a few minutes ago. What's threatening your security? Are you a newlywed getting ready to step into marriage and living with another human being that wasn't your family for the first time in your life? Or are you in the point of welcoming a new child into your household, whether you're adopting, whether you're birthing a child yourself, whether you're taking care of a grandchild for a season where your life is getting ready to change because of a child? Is it a career? Or, those are all pretty positive things. Or is it something more dark and unsettling? Are you facing the loss of a relationship that you've been in for decades? Wow, I'm in this season of life where that's the big thing for a lot of people. It's We enter the empty nest, our kids are gone, and then all of a sudden our relationships change. And those can be unsettling. Or I think the most hard one is, are you experiencing the actual death or loss of a loved one in your life? So when you look at those possibilities of transitions, all those are transitions, right? The season or the type of transition doesn't change the approach, okay? That's what I want you to think about. Once you begin to settle in this and understand this, it's always the same approach, is that instead of seeking for security, and I wish it would go back to the way it was, instead I'm going to look for significance and how can I add value with my distinct design in the season and transition of my life. And that's gonna help me not become extinct in my impact, because when I lament the loss, when I look that when something is lost in my life on the negative, if I lament that and cry for that and yearn for that, and I keep in the past, not that there's not a season for grieving, but that's gonna cause that piece of my life to die inside. God is a God of building and layering and adding and creating depth. He's not a God of complete death and extinction, all right? You think about extinction, that means it's wiped out, it's never again there. Well, that's not how God designed your life to be. So when you find that your normal is going to change, and it will, are you going to have the posture of decrease? Are you going to allow change and transition to just push you down and depress you and keep you from moving forward in your life? Or will you step up, pull your head up and say, I'm going to increase in this season. I'm going to find what I can label as a trade-off. Even in a very, very dark moment, I'm going to find what I can in this place of my life. And I'm going to find what I can put my finger in this season of my story. And I'm going to be able to pass that baton on to a stronger me, to a better version of who I am. So when we are no longer able to change our situation, this is a great quote by Viktor Frankl. I want you to write this down. When we are no longer able to change our situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Wow, I love that. Don't let that be a negative. Let that be a positive. Let that encourage you right there. Because that's the thing with transition. There are two different kinds. There are transitions that we can anticipate. The wedding, the birth of a first child, the start of a career, retirement, an empty nest. Those are things that we can anticipate. So those are things that I believe we need to be proactive with. Find a mentor in your life that's ahead of you in those seasons, those particular seasons especially. Don't think just because it's you that you're never going to have the problems that everybody else does. We hear all the time the problems that people have when the nest becomes empty. We hear the challenges of when somebody enters in that first season of marriage, or they enter in that first season of childhood rearing, okay? We also see people that when they finally get to retirement, it's not what they expected, because they never actually, to them it was just about quitting a 9-to-5, right? So those are seasons of transition that you can anticipate, and you have a responsibility to begin to ask God to show you how to better appropriate those seasons in your life. You're still going to have feelings you've never had. You're still going to have to adjust to that new normal based on your design. Yes, but you can't anticipate those. Don't put your head in the sand and be caught off guard by those, because let me tell you what, there are enough transition in life that you can't control, that you don't want to have all of them be like that. The ones you can't control, those are the tough ones. Those are the ones that'll knock the breath out of you. Those are the ones that you find yourself in a place of life where you are all of a sudden the rug's pulled out because somebody dies in your life that you just weren't expecting that. They're gone forever. Well, guess what? You cannot change that normal in your life. You can never, literally, you can never put that person back in your life. It's a tough transition, but the approach is the same. What can I trade off in that season? What can I learn? How can I add value to the rest of my family in this moment? What can I take from the life of that person that was strong and legacy bearing, and begin to facilitate in my life that thing that will carry on their memory in a way that would be greater than if they were even here? You know, that sounds weird, but that's powerful, and you can do that. What if it's a loss of a relationship of decades and decades of marriage, or decades and decades of a close friend? What happens when there's betrayal and rejection that you weren't anticipating? Yeah, that's a big transition. that even in that you can find a trade-off. So if you will allow your mind to be used the way God created it to be, He created us to be able to think like He thinks and to align our thoughts with His thoughts and to not look at everything negative as being a negative in our life. That we can find moments of breakthrough. We can find things that dawn in our life that would have never been there before if we will just change our position in that. So there's a couple things here that I hope will help you with this. Seeking security turns my focus inward. So when you're finding yourself saying, I just want to go back to the new normal, I just want to hide from this and just let it blow over, what you're doing is you're turning inside and you're trying to protect and guard yourself from that problem. And what does that do? We all know that being problem focused instead of purpose focused creates, well, it's going to create something to die in your life because you're just not going to move forward in that. So instead, if I will seek significance, what is that doing? That is putting my focus outward on other people, right? Because significance is, how can I create value in your life? We've talked about serving up meaning well. We've talked about being that velvet covered brick, haven't we? Well, all of that comes into play here. Turn your thoughts and your focus outward. Use your distinct design and purpose to push out towards other people in a season of insecurity of yourself. And you know what you're going to find? You're going to look up and find a release of that burden, a release of that anxiety. And if you'll just stay at it long enough, you're going to find God brings somebody in your life that provides that security back to you. So let's talk for a minute about that. Let's look at the life of Jesus. I mean, He is our model. He's our model. And sometimes we read the stories and we don't really sit in what happened. Think about Jesus for a minute. He emptied Himself of His heavenly abilities, of His heavenly power as being the Son of God, as being the Word of God. And He still was that. This is a hard concept, so I'm not going to get into the details of this, but He emptied that out. He was born as a baby, and for 33 years, He experienced a normal human life. He grew in wisdom and stature. He grew. That means He went through transitions as a human being, didn't He? He had to learn things. He had to learn how to respond in authority and discipline to His parents, Mary and Joseph. He had to learn how to grow in the wisdom, right? Because He was a human being. He didn't automatically have all that. He had to make choices to obey, didn't He? Well, what did He do? He did that for 33 years. But what He understood, because in 33 years, He knew what it was like to feel like a human being, didn't He? He knew what it was like to cut himself when He's working in that woodworking shop. He knew pain. Don't tell me that He didn't know the pain of those nails in His hands. The demonic oppression and attack that He was under in those days leading up to and in the crucifixion. Man, we think we get hit by the enemy sometimes. He was hit with everything in the demonic world. What was it like to be spit on by people? To be naked in front of people? The shame. I mean, guys, He felt it. But you know what? The Bible says that He could have protected His security. He could have, just like that, called a legion of angels and He would have been out of here. Right? He had the opportunity to do that. And what did He do? He saw the significance in walking through that and trading off His security for significance. And what was that significance? It was purchasing our redemption. It was purchasing our eternal security. That was the significance that He traded off for. And did you hear what I just said? His significance, focus, created eternal security for us. He focused not on the problem at hand and why, God, why? Oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? I didn't know what this is really going to be like. I don't want to go through this. Now, He asked that in the Garden of Gethsemane, but He chose to walk through that transition anyway because of the joy that was set before Him. What was the joy? It was the significance that He was focusing on. It was you and I that He was focusing on. He was able to set that before Him. He was intentional about forward thinking, right? So in a moment of darkness in your life, in a moment of transition that should have been anticipated or transition that you had no control of, even in the darkness of that, choose to just close your eyes and sit with God in your simple space and say, God, what can I focus on moving forward? What is before me that I can put into this place right now? So Jesus focused on you and me. and the internal security was the trade-off that he provided for us. So I want to close with this, that the whole point of trade-offs, the whole point of being able to shift your thinking in this is that many times trade-offs seem like a sacrifice, but they can in effect provide the security that someone else so desperately needs. So when you feel like you're sacrificing, when you feel like you're losing something, think outwardly and think, how can this help somebody else? God always operates from that law of exchange. We take care of others, in return, God takes care of us. Trade-offs are about developing a mindset and a new way of viewing the hard choices that we have to make in the seasons of transition as our life advances. Trade-offs are anticipated, even out of our control, can still be huge benefits in our life. One of my mentors that I have chosen to put in front of me, I talked about this earlier, I've chosen to sit in front of a man that has great wisdom, and he's about 15 to 20 years ahead of me in life. And one of the things that he said to me during COVID that I have sat in every day, and I hope this will help you, right now we need a greater ability to not only recognize the opportunities, but to have peace with the additional load of this trade-off season, so that we can know when it's time to lay down or trade off one thing in order to pick up another. It's the baton again. There is a timing in this, and there might be a season, even in your transition, when you just don't understand what's happening, and maybe you're a little unsettled. It's okay to feel that way. Begin to seek God for that peace, to understand there might be an extra load right now as I transition from this to this. But God is in my life, and He has a strong hold on that. So just know that you can trade security of what was the old normal for significance, and you can develop a new normal in your life with a distinct design that God has given you to impact and to help others do the same thing. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If this has been beneficial to you, leave a comment. What is something that you are being threatened with right now in your security? Leave a comment below. What is something that you've learned that you can trade off right now to help others? What are some ways that you can begin to flip that script in your life to better align your thoughts, your words, and your attitude with God's distinct design for you? Hit that bell so you can be notified. Leave some comments to those questions. We'll have those questions actually down in the body of this, in this YouTube channel, so go to look at that. Meditate those. Let God begin to work through those on you, okay? And remember that in a situation, in a season of life, even if you're not able to change that situation, ask yourself, am I willing to change myself? Can I grow in this, that I can transition in my life and get a new normal? I wish you guys a great week. I hope that this helps you a lot, and my love for you is so great. I just see you in a camera right now, but my heart is with you. I wish I could sit with you literally in this simple space, but I hope that you hear my heart, and that these words that God is showing me and His work through me can touch your hearts this week, and that when you find yourself saying, I just want to get back to normal, that this will trigger something in you. It's like, I can have a better new normal in my life. Have a great week. Love you guys.